Hello, I'm Nicole Pauling, and today we are going to be talking about students and teachers in a digital age. Now, this is based on some surveys that I did. I did one for teachers and one for students. So let's go ahead and get started. It's really important that teachers and students understand how to use and utilize technology in today's modern world. It's almost impossible to have no time spent with technology. I would say it is pretty much impossible to have no technology involved in education today, from keeping track of grades and attendance to knowing what school lunch is, right? Everybody needs to have access to technology. But how it's used and utilized is going to vary from person to person and school to school. Now, here's my methodology. I created online surveys. What they were sent to teachers. For my teacher surveys, they were sent to teachers who teach both online, and then in a second group who are just teachers in a regular brick and mortar school, a regular school district. And then I looked at those results and used those to help figure out some best practices in terms of using technology. Now, what were those results? Two of the big things that I was interested in was, did this technology actually enhance learning, and did it hinder learning? Because in some cases it did, depending on the student. Student diversity and technology. A lot of the things that people pointed out is, if a student was already having issues, when technology that they were unfamiliar with was introduced, and when there was a difference in platforms, connection speeds, or even the access to computers and technology at home, it really created a huge disparity between students. Here's a summary of what I learned from those surveys. It can be used to help ELL learners. You were able to read and to translate things much easier using technology than just sitting in a classroom. It does help some special needs learners if done correctly and done well. It can also hinder those same learners. They can fall further behind than they were even in a regular classroom. Access to the technology was not equal amongst all students. There are a lot of things you can't do on, say, a Chromebook, and a lot of students have Chromebooks. Technology for technology's sake was just not a good enough reason to incorporate it. All of the teachers surveyed thought that you had to have a really good reason for using the technology that you use, and you should be able to justify that the benefits are going to outweigh everything else. Um, and in terms of special needs, we already kind of discussed that it's sometimes helps, sometimes hinders. I have a lot of online experience, teaching strictly through online mediums. So as you can see, I'm a teacher on DIY, I'm a teacher on OutSchool, I'm a teacher on AllSchool, I'm a teacher at the Academy of Wonder, and I'm also one of the launchers of the Facebook Meta program, which is an instructor's program that they're launching, and most people probably have never even heard of. It is specifically a place where you have to be invited to teach. So what I learned from these surveys is that technology can hinder or enhance. You have to be very thoughtful in using it and make sure that it's accessible for all. I also did a series of student surveys. These were sent to students who are only in the online classroom, because I am an online only teacher. I do not have a brick and mortar classroom. I have never taught in a regular school district. So those are not students that I have access to. Because of this, you're going to see some pretty significant differences in my student population. About 75% of my students have a diagnosed learning disability or qualify for an IEP. A lot of them have autism or ADHD or both. Um, Quite a few of my students identify as LGBTQ. About 10 of them identify as furries. Uh, my student interest ranges from history to art to gaming. Most, though not all, do not enjoy reading. Some of them can't read at all, even though they are older students, or they feel that they are not good at it or that it's boring. These are the top 4 technologies that I use for online teaching. I use Zoom, YouTube, Canva, and Google. Each one is used for different things. Zoom is obviously my classroom. YouTube I use to reinforce learning. Canva I use for making my own videos, backgrounds, projects. In fact, this presentation that you're seeing right now was made on Canva and will be later uploaded to YouTube. Uh, Google, I use that for slideshows, lesson plans, and collaborative work. Very limited collaborative work, I should point out. My classes are all designed based on accessibility. So I've taken all those lessons that we just talked about from the teachers and the students, and I've taken those and turned them into a very inclusive, accessible classroom. I've done this by combining Hattie with e-learning theory and universal design. My classes are welcoming spaces. My pronouns are always on screen when I'm on Zoom. That allows my LGBTQ students to know that I am aware that pronouns matter. I allow my students to change their names on screen and to specify their pronouns. I also call them by the name on their screen, not on their paperwork. Because a lot of my students have autism, ADHD, and learning disabilities, my classes are very verbal. There are no written components, even though I do have closed captioning turned on for my students who are learning impaired. It also does enhance the reading ability for students to be able to follow along, but that is not an essential skill to have to be able to be successful in my classes. They're highly interactive. There's student teaching and feedback throughout the class. There's scaffolding in it, prior knowledge checks, student ideas, teacher sharing, video reinforcement, and then student reframing and feedback. So, really, any idea that we introduce, I go over about 3 or 4 times in the class. ELL learners, the same things that I do for my special needs students absolutely work for my ELL learners and my regular learners as well. I currently have students in 72 different countries. Here are my references. I reference John Hattie, Visible Learning. Here's the website. Myself, which is the Academy of Wonder, e-learning theory. Here is a really good article on learningtheories.com and Universal Design for Learning. The articles on Understood are really fantastic. And to learn more about my classes, please visit me at the Academy of Wonder or follow me on social media. And thank you so much.